Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello, people, and welcome to Footy Judge Mo. What is wrong with you? Why are you laughing? It's only me and you here. Why are you laughing?
I don't know what's going on, bro. I don't know what's going on, right? You need to get a watch or something, because someone needs to teach you how to tell the time, man.
Allah Azim, listen, guys in the chat, I gave Wolfie 3 times. 3 times in a manner of 2 minutes. I gave him 3 times. I told him 12:45. I told him 1:45, and I told him 11:45.
No. You gave me 2 times. 12:45, 1:45, and oh shit, I'm live now. And I'm like,
yeah. I meant to say 11:45 because I'm in Egypt. I'm 2 hours ahead of the UK. But listen, people, there's a lot to talk about, and there is nothing. No one is better than Wolfie to actually give you the objective analysis of everything that is happening in the Premier League. Of course, there's 1,000 people in the house. So let's get the likes up. Big up everyone that joined us on the Football Terrace. Brentford actually are frustrated. Okay, let me give you the headlines, people. But listen, can we get to 400 likes? The like button is underneath the live chat. I want to hear what people actually say in the chat as well. Get involved in the conversation. Thank you so much for everyone supporting Footy Judge Mo. We're on the way to 40K now. We're actually past 36K. So big up everyone that supported us. Of course, Brentford are frustrated with Manchester United, with Mbeumo. They want more money. Man United don't want to pay. Is that saga going to ever end? Or Man United will end up with Vardy and Calvert-Lewin? We'll talk about that as well. Ekitike to Liverpool. Also, Diaz might be leaving to Barcelona, or it's growing feeling around Diaz that he might be leaving. Also, Konate wants to go to Real Madrid. That is a big talk from Liverpool. Elanga, of course, joined Newcastle. It's a year ago. Basically, Nottingham Forest have turned into Inter, which is like a feeder club. Of course, Nottingham Forest selling one of the best players to Newcastle. Will get Wolfie's take about this. They are targeting a PSG player that I never heard of. Of course, Wolfie is fuming, of course, about some of the transfer deals about Nottingham Forest. Arsenal, the Gyokerez deal, there is breaking news that Fabrizio Romano have unpinned the Gyokerez deal to Arsenal from his Twitter account. Does that mean there is something?
Oh,
he just released a video saying that there is a difference in valuation by 5 million euros. He believes they're going to reach a common ground, but he unpinned the Gyokerez thing. RB Leipzig actually now are willing to sell Sisco for a cheaper price. And I think Liverpool are going to go for him. That is the report that is coming from Germany. Liverpool might try to get Cisco, which is going to be funny to Hussam, of course. Wolf is doing a show with Hussam. I needed to bring this up tomorrow. That imagine if Liverpool signs Cisco and Arsenal get Gyokerez. We'll talk about that as well. There are the Norgard deal is done and everything. And I think there's only one place to start, people, which is hit that like button. Forest. Why did Elanga leave? Why are Newcastle getting your better players?
I don't know if I'd say better player. I'd say good
He's
player.
one of your better players.
It's probably our 5th best player, I would say, roughly speaking.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't have sold him. I wouldn't have sold him. Bro, no, you can't say that. Milenkovic.
He's one of your better players.
Oh, hold on.
No. I'm not talking about the defenders. In terms of the forward line.
Oh man, Elanga, no doubt.
Okay,
yeah.
Elanga, Hudson-Odoi. Okay, you know what? If you sold Chris Wood, I would be okay with it. You know why? Age-wise, you might go for a younger striker for the future. But selling Elanga or selling Hudson-Odoi, for example, or selling Morgan Gibbs-White, these are the pillars of the attack. Chris Wood, great and everything, scored a lot of goals. But you get the point. If you're selling a 30-plus years old player.
If you're talking in the team, then no, I don't agree. I think Elanga's better than Hudson-Odoi. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is probably better than Elanga. But either way, it's a weird one because Forest are under no financial pressures. The word is we're not selling anyone. No one was looking to leave. Elanga wasn't pushing for the move to leave. The PR spin that the club are doing today is that the offer was too good to refuse. I kind of don't agree with that.
Too good to refuse?
Yeah, I don't agree. I think that's the market rate for a right winger who's a homegrown, Premier League proven, 17 GA last season, 3rd most assists in the league, top 5 in European football. I think Newcastle have got a good deal. Now, is it a bad or a good deal for Forest? My answer will come when I see what we replace them with. If we replace them with someone as good or better than him, then it's a good deal. If we replace them with someone shitter than him, then it's a bad deal. For me, it's that black and white. If Forest are going to sell what we would deem as one of our most pivotal players in the attack, then they damn well better have a good replacement, especially after all the PR they've put out so far this summer, that no one's going, that they've renewed contracts for Murillo, for Chris Wood, for Morgan Gibbs-White is about to happen. Einar was announced yesterday, and so on. So it depends on what we replace them with. Does this make Forest a selling club? No, we haven't been ransacked. Everyone told me we were going to lose Murillo, Morgan Gibbs-White, etc. They're all signing up to new contracts. Bournemouth, they've been ransacked.
Who would you be happy with? Madueke, for example?
No, he's a scrub, bro.
Madueke, for me, Madueke is better than Elanga, to be honest.
How is Madueke better than Elanga, bro?
I literally explained it. I explained it. I have a footballing opinion about this. Elanga is a very good player, right? However, Elanga plays in a team that doesn't average high ball position. My point about this, if you go to the top teams always have more than 50% ball position in majority of their game. They dominate position, they don't have spaces, they play in tight spaces. You have to beat your man in a very tight space. Elanga is a very good player in a counter-attacking team. You get my point? And that is my take. Like, in my opinion, for example, if Elanga goes to Arsenal, he won't have the same spaces to run into. How many times you are seeing Elanga on a counter-attack or a transition, or when you beat the press and you build from the back and you beat the press and there is like 30 to 40 yards that he runs into it. I'm not saying there are two types of players in this world. There are players that are excelling in both aspects of the game, and there are some players that are excelling in tight spaces, and there are some other players that excel in big spaces, counter attacks, places to run. You know what I mean? Yeah. Elanga is one of these guys. Like Elanga joins Brentford, for example. Even Newcastle, who some games they play on transition, they don't smother the opposition, will be a magnificent signing. Elanga for Nottingham Forest, he was lethal last season. We saw his goals, we saw his assists. He's lethal. Why? Because the majority of your games in the league, you are not smothering the opposition. You're not camping in the opposition's half.
This isn't helping your argument.
It is. It is.
It's not, because you said Madueke is better than Elanga, and then you're talking about it in respect of for Forest, because you're saying Madueke to Forest.
No, but
would
I
be an
never.
improve-
But I.
would
But
Madueke to
no,
Forest
but
be an improvement over Elanga?
I never said that. No.
Okay,
Might not.
خلاص.
Elanga is a better player in space, but for big teams, for top. Okay.
Yeah,
To be
but
honest,
we're
you
talking
know
about this
exactly.
conversation in respect to what.
No,
what
I did.
Forest would get. Then why you wait? Hold on, because we're talking about who would replace Elanga.
I asked you a simple question. Are you going to be happy with Madueke? And he said no, and I understand why you're not.
Yeah, but you're now arguing why I should be happy with Madueke when you've made the points. No, you've made all the points about why Elanga works better.
No. These were two separate. These were two separate points about is Madueke a better player than Elanga? Maybe for you, Madueke is not a better player than Elanga. Maybe. And I agreed with you.
I would argue Elanga is a better player than Madueke in general.
In general.
As well. On top of, for me, there's no doubt that Elanga is better in a Forest system than Madueke is. And I would say Elanga has done better than Madueke in the Premier League as well. Not in Forest.
Okay, so your team averages 40% ball position across the season. You are bottom 3 in position. That means you are a transition-based team or a counter-attacking.
I'm not arguing that.
Okay, so my point is that in counter-attacking, for example, Jacob Murphy would be very good for you because he's a counter-attacking player. He's a good player. He had 20 GA last season. You know that he had 20 GA.
But that's not the point you raised. You were talking about Madueke, bro.
I asked you and you said no, and you explained your point. I'm fine. Okay, but I think that Madueke is a better player, to be honest. Overall, I would take.
I don't think a lot of people would agree with you. If I'm being honest.
A lot of people won't agree with me, but that is my point. I actually always view football, and I'm with all due respect to all the teams that play, I view football from the top team's perspective. The teams that always have position. You know what I mean? The Chelseas, the Arsenals, the Liverpools, the Man Cities. These teams, because in my opinion, the majority of teams that win leagues are the teams that have more possession, that actually stamp their authority in the game.
That's what I mean? True. Like under Mourinho, would you say Chelsea were a possession-based team?
The majority of the games, yes, Chelsea have the majority. I literally went and checked the stats.
Yeah, but to the eye, they don't look that. Okay. When you won the Champions League?
I'm going to tell you why. There is a difference between cup competitions and the Champions League. You can win the Champions League being a defensive team against the bigger teams. But even Inter, in the Champions League against smaller teams, right? We had position. In the league, the majority of the teams you play, if you win the league, the majority of the teams you play, they are below you on the table. If you're third, fourth, if you're second, if you're first. Most of the games, I'm going to argue 30 games out of the 38 games you play, right? You normally stamp your authority on the game. Do you agree with this? The majority of the teams, especially in the last 10 years, that win the league.
Yeah.
Like the Liverpools, the Man Cities. Madueke is a good player in tight spaces. Is he a top player to start? No. He's not that quality to start. But is he a good backup? Yes. He can be a good backup for a team like Arsenal. He can be a good backup for a team like Chelsea. He's not a starter. That is my take on Madueke.
All right, let me put it this way. Would Madueke work at Newcastle better than Elanga?
Newcastle are a very strange team. I don't know. They both would be equal. The problem with Newcastle is that they play half their games as a position-based team and half their games as not position-based team. That is my problem. Like Newcastle average 50% ball position. Basically, half their games, they play in high pressure, they smother the opposition. And half their games, they play on the lower side. Until Madueke would work better at Newcastle if Newcastle moved to the next level, which is we actually going to be stamping our authority. That is my take on it. Is Elanga going to be proven at Newcastle? I actually don't know, to be honest.
I don't know. I think you're being harsh on him.
I like Elanga, but I like Elanga in a completely different setup.
I'm not saying Elanga is the finish. I have many frustrations with Elanga.
I wanna move on to I wanna move on to something. Manchester United with this Mbeumo deal. How do you think Man United will do next season if they get Mbeumo and Cunha?
What, with Højlund up front?
No, we know that Man United are trying to target a striker. We know that.
Who? I'm hearing Vardy, Callum Wilson, and Calvert-Lewin, bro. Like, seriously, who? They're not getting Gyokerez. I can't see them getting Sesko. Who? Are they gonna play? They're gonna play Mbeumo up front potentially. That's probably a better option for them to do that than play Højlund and maybe put Bruno in the 10 alongside Cunha. I think Man U still have this problem.
You think the striker market is dead for Man United? There are other players that can play.
Give me names. Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins would be great.
You're looking at nearly a 30-year-old now. He's a bit
fantastic.
Patchy.
It would be fantastic for them. Ollie Watkins ahead of Mbeumo and Cunha. That is a very good front line.
So we're down to one striker. We're down to one striker.
Yeah, but one.
Man U.
No, they have Xerxes. Remember, Xerxes coming back.
Not a 9, bro. Xerxes
yeah, but
he
can change.
Xerxes himself has come out and said, "I'm not a 9. He prefers to play in the half space in behind."
Which is fine, but I think he can be used because you remember Mbeumo, big up Olo. Mbeumo and Cunha are players that can exchange places, right? That means if he plays Xerxes, any of them can be the 9. You don't have to play with an out-and-out 9.
Yeah, but you're missing.
I'm trying to be objective with Man United, and
I will not be objective to Man United, but I'll try to be for the sake of this conversation. Because I'm looking historically at Manchester United over the last 6 to 7 years. For me, they have been a moments FC team, right? They have been a player FC team. They rely on individual brilliance rather than a collective team outcome. And that has been their DNA, whether Man United fans agree or not. I actually think a lot would, that Bruno has saved them. Rashford has saved them. Individual moments have saved them. They haven't had a good team. And I'm not talking superstars.
But that's what they are trying to do.
Hold on, let me get to the point.
Trying to do.
By adding Cunha in,
they are trying to do.
Hold on. By adding Cunha in, you will add goals, you will add assists. But Cunha himself is an individual player. He carried Wolves. Mbeumo is coming from Brentford. Yeah, I think Mbeumo is fantastic, by the way. But I don't think 2 changes the team. I still look at their midfield in this 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 formation. And I think if you're starting with Casemiro, and probably you'd have to put Bruno in there because you're going to put Mbeumo and Cunha in the 10. That's a soft midfield. Or is he going to change it and put Ugarte and Bruno in there? It's still very soft. Man United need an out-and-out.
What do you mean soft? Can you explain to me what do you mean soft?
Bro, Casemiro has not got legs to go a whole season. Right,
there's Ugarte still. There is Ugarte. They're targeting Ederson.
Is poor, man. Ugarte can't hold a midfield. You need a midfielder. You need a 6 who can hold a midfield in a 2-man midfield.
But they don't need someone that excels in the midfield if they have Bruno Fernandes.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do, man. You don't just
Casemiro played with Modric and Kroos for the majority of his career. All he had to do is tackle, give the ball to the next guy. And every now and then play a long ball here and there.
In the Spanish league, where he's tested 4 or 5 games a season. In the Premier League, Casemiro, who I still think has legs in him, but Casemiro, for me to work, would need a 3-man midfield. You just said it yourself. He was playing in a 3-man midfield in Real. He can't do a 2-man midfield. That's
Amorim's job. Wolfie, that's Amorim's job then. Amorim is the one who wanted Ugarte. Amorim is the one who wanted Cunha.
What are you talking about? Ugarte came before Amorim was there.
And he played with him before.
Oh, okay. But he didn't want him in, man. That was already done.
So you're telling me that a player like Ugarte or Casemiro cannot play with players like Mbeumo, Cunha, and Bruno Fernandes?
That's not what I'm saying. I am saying they can't play with a player as their partner, as Bruno Fernandes, who wanders over the pitch all over the place, bro.
You know
He's
what?
not disciplined enough to play as the 8 in the double pivot.
You know what? There is no player at the current moment that I see that actually a very good destroyer and also a great passer of the ball. These are very rare in the world.
No, they're not.
Very rare.
No,
very rare in the world. Who is that?
No, they're not.
Who's the player that is very good in passing and actually a very good destroyer? They're very rare.
Douglas Luiz. They got
Douglas
Douglas
Luiz.
Luiz, bro. If they got Douglas Luiz,
We couldn't get a game at
what are you
Juventus.
talking about, bro? If they got Douglas Luiz,
Caicedo is an anomaly that is £100+ million player. That is the thing. To get a player like this is an anomaly.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Obviously at his level, but there are players that can do that job. Norgard, who went for 10 million, he can do that job. These are players. This is what's missing in the Manchester United team. And of course, let's not get started on the goalkeeper. So it's very nice having your Acuñas, your Mbeuemos and everything like that. Playing in a two-man midfield is a very specific, hard job to do. And in that formation, it has to be, those players have to be key. Casemiro is not the Casemiro from 7 years ago. Ugarte wasn't consistently used last season. Maybe he kicks on this season. And the big problem is Bruno Fernandes will have to drop into an 8 role because he will use Cunha and Mbeumo as the 10s, for example. And Bruno wanders around that pitch too much. So the discipline on the double pivot doesn't exist while he's in there, in my opinion.
So you don't think that Man United system will work?
I don't think that system, I think that system can work with the correct set of players, but I think that system is very dependent on one, having good wing backs to play.
Yes, I agree.
To create the width, which I don't think they've got currently. And 2, you have to have a very good double pivot in the middle for it to work. Then the icing up front is whatever, man. I think they're fine. I like their 10s, and they definitely need a 9. There's still bare holes in that United team, bro. Bare holes.
There is holes, but I believe that if they get Cunha, Mbeumo, and Oli Watkins, that will give them a spot.
I think it would be more important for them to sign Douglas Luiz than it would be to get an Mbeumo in, because you could put Bruno in the 10. You could put Xerxes in the 10. You can't rely on the midfield they've got. Mainu, right? He can play that position, but he's probably more a 10 than he is the 8. It's not balanced. It's not balanced for me.
What do you think, Olo, before we move
on? Couple of things. So
your mic is absolutely shit.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but your mic is loud as fuck.
Well, let me. Oh, it does this automatically all the time. All right, is that better? That's better.
Sounds all right. Sounds
okay.
Okay, cool. Couple of things. On Douglas Luiz, first of all, I think that ship is sailed. I think we are probably romanticizing a player who I don't think it was as good as people made him out to be. And obviously, he's gone to Juventus. He hasn't worked for him. I think if United go for someone like Douglas Luiz, they're doing the same problems they've done over the past couple of years, which is bringing players where you think there's a good reputation behind them, and ultimately it fails in a club where right now there's a lot of disarray. So I don't think Douglas Luiz right now in 2025 is a self-player they should be going for. And yes, he has got a good pass in him, but I think there's fundamental issues in that team that Douglas Luiz does not fix. So I wouldn't, if I was hiring for United, I wouldn't be looking at Douglas Luiz as a starter. They need to what they need to do is they need to scout properly. I know we as football fans always sort of go towards the names that we know, right? And it becomes a very sort of small pool of players. But they've got scouts. Same thing for for the striking position, same thing for midfield. They need to go out and scout players because obviously the way they've done things in the past doesn't work anymore. I think there are fundamental issues in United. I don't think going for specific names fixes it. I think, first of all, Amorim needs to figure out if his system is going to work in the Premier League, right? And establish a baseline for that team in terms of this is how you play in the Premier League. Like, make them difficult to beat and then start adding to that. But I don't think going for players that we necessarily have seen play, like a Vlahovic, for example, as a striker. Yeah, 5 years ago when he was playing for Fiorentina, that was a great name. He's gone to Juventus. He's had issues with Juventus. He's had issues with his personality and clashing with in Juventus. Why would you want to bring that to a disjointed United where it's not just what's happening on the pitch, it's also what's happening in the boardroom, it's also what's happening in the canteen, it's also what's happening in training as well. So they need to go and get good personalities, first of all. I don't know what the solution to that problem is. I'm not a coach, I'm not a scout, but if I was talking about United, I think that is what they should be going for. Or that's the approach they should be going for?
Yeah, but do you agree with me on the positions? Like that central midfield area is very weak. Your goalkeeper is horrific.
Yeah,
These
I agree.
these are the key positions for me, and obviously a number 9. I
I,
I think you've got enough in the tens to at least put something decent together, especially with Cunha now in. But if you don't want Douglas Luiz and you're talking about scouted players, then someone like a Richard Rios from Palmeiras, who's going for 30 million euros, is an absolute bargain. Forest are interested in him as well. I think you're interested in him as well, aren't you? Well, at Inter.
Yeah.
This is a very good player who, yes, is unproven in European leagues, but has the attributes for me to seamlessly transition into it. But my point still stands, whether or not you agree on Douglas Luiz or not, to play a 2-man midfield in this system that he clearly struggled with in the Premier League last season will require the game. What games are won and lost with the midfielders? That's the key for me. You win the midfield battle, more likely than not, you win the game. And your midfield is too weak. And I don't even think right now Amorim knows who his best 2 central pairing is. I think he feels he has to fit Bruno in there because he's going to have to move him into one of those. That leaves one position open. And at the moment, it's going to be either Casemiro, Ugarte. I guess you could put Mainu in there. That's not strong enough. And that's the position you need to focus on for me.
We'll see how it goes with Man United. I don't think Man United will play a major role in the league next season.
I agree. I was going to say, I do. Sorry, Wolfie asked the question if I agreed. I think, yeah, you're right. Midfield is a massive problem for them. I think United are too easy to run through in general, right? You watch United play, you could just see like players get behind them, and that's because there's a lack of pace, lack of understanding in terms of where players should be on the pitch. Onana's been a joke since he joined. I had arguments with Mo about Onana. I told him that basically scammed United. He was like, "Oh no, he played good for Inter." 2 years down the line, or 3 years, whatever it is,
he played well with Inter. But anyway, that's for a different story, guys. I want to move on from United. Hit that like button, people. We got 1,200 people here, so 1,200 people in the house. So hit that like button, people, if you're here. Subscribe. Guys, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let's get at least to 300 likes, guys. The like button is underneath the live chat. I don't want to stop the show every time to tell you to like the video. It helps the channel. It helps the algorithms. It pushes the show to new people. About the, I wanted to ask a question before we move on to the teams that are chat. How do you view Newcastle rule in the league next season?
Ruling or ruining?
The rule in the league. What rule will Newcastle play in the league next season?
Roll.
Are they going to be
roll?
Rule, man.
Roll.
Rule is rule. Roll.
No. Roll is what you say in England.
I didn't know if he said rule or he said ruin. I wasn't sure.
I thought he said he ruined the league. I was like, already.
Anyway, so what do you think they're gonna do next season? Where are they gonna be in the league? What I mean, are they gonna affect the league title? Are they gonna be like just someone that is floating around 5th, 6th, or they're gonna try to battle one of the teams for top 4? Which one do you think is gonna be?
I am more inclined to say they will be in the sort of top 4 battle, probably missing out on it than challenge for the league. I don't think that they fundamentally improved their team to a point where they can sustain a challenge. They're still very dependent on a few players, i.e., I mean, you can say this about every team in the league, to be honest. You depend on your best players, right? But they're still very, very dependent on someone like Isak for getting goals. Obviously, as well, they've got the likes of Bruno Gyokerez as well, who is an engine, and of course a very good defense as well. But I think that I feel like they're a team of specific individuals that if you take them out, they're not as strong as other teams if you can take out their best players. So what I mean by that is that if you take out Isak, they haven't got another goal scorer at that level, right? Someone who can score regularly and it's not just his goal scoring, it's just running behind the defense as well that causes so much problems, right? They had Jacob Murphy, who played way above his level in terms of what we're seeing of him in the Premier League, right? And of course the midfield. If you lose like a Bruno G, like they did with Joe Linton towards the end of last year, I think that you sort of need those 3 together and taking one out. And I know they've got other players you can put in there. But I don't think they're strong without that specific 3. I think they're less of a brute team without Joe Linton or Bruno Gyokerez in it. So I still think that they're kind of still built for a top 4 challenge as opposed to a league winning team right now.
I disagree. I put them a notch higher than that. I'm assuming they're going to get a centre back because I think they need one.
And a striker because now reported that what's it? Callum Wilson is gone, so they need a striker.
And the goal, I think they're getting Trafford. I'm not that sold on Trafford.
I actually, they're gonna try to get Gehi actually today. They're gonna try to battle Liverpool for Gehi
again. That last season, yeah. I think again, I look at their midfield. I think is one of the strongest in the league. Their starting midfield is very, very strong. Gyokerez, Linton, and Tonali is a very good midfield 3. I think that challenges most teams in the Premier League. I think one of those players could probably get into pretty much most teams in the league. They've now got lightning pace on both wings with Gordon and with Elanga. That gives them options in what we were discussing earlier. They can play counter-attacking against the heavy hitters in the league and still have threats on both wings in terms of their pace. And they can play and control games against the lesser teams with that midfield 3 they've got. Now, do I expect them to go?
Wolf is being objective. Oh, my God.
What do you mean? I'm always objective, bro.
You're what?
Always. But do I think they go and win the league? No. Do I see them being talked about as title challengers come January time? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're within striking distance, but then I expect them to fall up. Now, when I say in a title race, I'm not saying like I would put money on it, astaghfirullah, but you know what I'm saying? They will be in that conversation. Do they end up in the top 4? I think they've got a very good chance of doing it. And it's a case of you look at just even looking at their fullbacks, Livramento and Hall are fantastic fullbacks. What they will end up with at the end of this window, if they get a centre back and a goalkeeper, is an excellent 11. The question will be, how deep is their squad going to be? How much impact does the Champions League? How deep do they go in the Champions League? So there will be external factors in what they do. But in terms of a raw starting at 11, I think it's one of the best potentially in the league.
Right. So on paper, yes.
Wolf is like he's giving us like a thing to think about.
Yeah. No.
Is Newcastle United have the best starting 11? One of the best starting 11 in the league.
I think
number one. I believe they have the best striker in the league. Okay, maybe we'll say Haaland, right? Haaland, Isak. I prefer Isak, but I think Haaland is great, but I think Anthony Gordon as a winger is okay, but left wingers, there is not a lot in the league that you can say that they are better than him. You cannot name me 5 left wingers that are better than Gordon. Elanga, very good in the transition, as Wolfie said. The 3 midfielders, basically the 3 midfielders are fantastic. Right? Chelsea are better midfield.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe Arsenal. I'm not sure about City, by the way, because at the current moment, City even don't know who the 3 midfielders are. Like, they don't know. Like, is it Foden? Is it Shirky? Is it going to be Kovacic? Is it Reinders? Like, we don't know. Rodri adds a lot, but we know that Rodri is not coming back the same. We saw him play. In their defense, Dan Burn is getting older by the minute, but he's getting better, which is very strange to me. Fabian Schär, I always rated, but not like Saliba and these guys.
Botman, if he's fit, is very good.
If Botman is fit, he's one of the best, right?
And their fullbacks are right up there. There's a lot to like about this Newcastle.
Okay, now you go.
I'll say this. So the thing about Newcastle is this, right? And it's like, look, the argument made is fine, right? I think it's a good argument. My only thing is that I think Newcastle are a home team, not an away team. I don't see Newcastle winning that many games away from home in comparison to how much they win at home, basically, right? And I've always said this in the past, and people sort of misunderstand it when I say some of my little girls in the house are walking past doing the conga line. I said, I think that they're very much a team that's driven by the emotion of the crowd, right? And that's why they're very hard to beat at home. But I don't see them going to some of the teams away from home and having that same level of performance, right? Even going to going to an Emirates, going to Stamford Bridge, going to the City Ground or Access City Ground. I don't mean Newcastle. I didn't mean Nottingham Forest. I meant Manchester City. But I'll give you the City Ground as well. Keep going. I just don't see them winning that many games away from home to be that much of a challenge. And that's why I think right now, as constructed as a team, they're definitely more of a top 4 team. If they're able to sort of go to those grounds and actually take points away from those teams, that's when I'll see them being more of a challenge. I don't see them coming to the Emirates and beating Arsenal, apart from when they beat us in the
So, Wolfie, if you say this, do you think Chelsea is in the same conversation as Newcastle?
Yeah. Chelsea have done decent recruitment. I'm not convinced that Delap is the one to lead a line for a title charge. Could he be? Maybe. But is he proven to be? No. So I still think the number 9, I'm not set on. Pedro, for me, I like him more as a 10 than a 9. And I still think they have a keeper issue. I still think they need... Look, Gittins will be unproven. But as you just said, there's not that much left-winger talent on the market right now. So I think that's an okay signing. Chelsea will be around there and should be there. For me, with Chelsea, it's about their mentality and more so the mentality of their fan base. I remember when Chelsea had a chance to overtake Liverpool last season, and the Chelsea fans didn't have the balls to say, oh, well, let's go for a title race. No, top 4 is fine. So I think with Chelsea, it's more a mentality thing. Are they ready to accept standards again, or are they just happy to spend nearly 2 billion and just say, yeah, we're fighting for top 4? Because Chelsea have the DNA to put a title challenge together, but have they got the mentality
not anymore. I think that DNA thing is gone. That was 5 years, 6 years ago. This Chelsea team is not the same Chelsea team. It's not the same coaching staff.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point.
In there.
They haven't got the mentality.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they need to build. They need to build something more than that. But coming back to Newcastle, I think I would still say now, based on evidence, that Chelsea are a better team than Newcastle. And I think, like, obviously, depending on how the Champions League goes next year in terms of how many teams from the UK can make, or from England can make into Champions League, like, obviously they can get Champions League football again, but I just don't see them doing it in the top 4. I still think that the teams that finish in top 4 are constructed better right now than Newcastle. But I think they will give every single team that comes to St. James's Park a hell of a game, and it's going to be difficult to beat them at home. I just don't see them being strong away from home.
I think the reality of it, looking at it objectively, is 3 out of the top 4 are set on paper at the very least. You'd say Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City should, by definition, be making up that top 3 out of the 4. That leaves you with, I don't know, we're assuming it's going to be coefficient again, and we're talking about 5 next season or 4. If it is 5, then you would have to say that the other positions, you would look to see similar teams to probably last year, because I haven't seen improvement from the teams underneath that to say that any of those will get back into it. Now, the argument may be Spurs. What have Spurs done in the market so far? All they've done is signed up Tel. And I think the Japanese defender, I think I saw, was confirmed today. That for me hasn't moved Spurs. You can argue the manager's better than Ange, but Tel was an absolute no-show for me last season.
You believe Spurs can be there in the top 5?
No.
Top 5?
No.
Okay.
I'm literally saying the opposite. I'm saying I haven't seen any change in Spurs,
in the Spurs
to suggest that they should do. So
what did they get kudos? What did they get kudos?
Well, let's talk about it when they do. I mean, Kudus had an absolutely horrific season last season, even though he is a very good player. Maybe a change is what he needs. But looking at it objectively, I haven't seen any movement from the teams beneath the top 7 from last season to suggest that there should be any change in the order. Now, there's always going to be an anomaly. On paper, a lot of people are expecting Manchester United to work their way back up. I don't think Cunha makes enough of a change with that. So I would expect the top 3 to be locked out, and then a battle, probably Chelsea favourites for that 4th position, and then the likes of Forest, Newcastle, Villa, and maybe one other looking to push for those final spots.
I actually have a feeling that we'll see a surprise this season in terms of who challenges what happens in the title race in top 5.
We see that every year. But we see every season we see a team.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we
in the years when Liverpool and City were challenging, we knew that this is going to happen. We knew that it will go down between Liverpool and City. It was obvious that there's a gap between Liverpool and City and the rest of the league. You know what I mean? Arsenal in the last 2 years have actually, the last 3 years actually have tried. Last year, Arsenal didn't challenge. I don't think you put in a challenge, basically, because of what happened.
We did. We put a poor challenge. That's what it was.
It's not even a challenge. Liverpool
We
won
put a
the
better challenge than you did. Huh?
Bro, Liverpool put in
Still
Liverpool
finished the
literally with 5 games to go win to Ibiza. That is not a title challenge.
That's why I said it. That's why I said it was a poor challenge.
It's not a title challenge. Going to the title race. Does Gyokerez change anyone's opinion about Arsenal if he goes to Arsenal? Because again, by the way, news now again that it is khalas, it's almost done.
I thought you said it was unpinned.
And now it's back again. It's not pinned again, but there are news that are saying that khalas, the deal is going to be struck within hours and he's going to be announced soon.
Yeah,
So that is what I said.
he always unpins things when he's like ready to put something big.
Yeah, like he unpinned it, like he unpinned it, but there are other outlets that are saying that it's almost done for.
I was gonna say until you see him holding a t-shirt, like I don't really consider.
Yeah, but you
done.
know that is happening. Okay, can we not beat around the bushes? And you know that Gyokerez is going to be
I saw John Obi Mikel in a press conference wearing a Manchester United shirt. Until I see the contract being signed, I don't believe anything anymore.
I think to answer your question, yes, it does change things. Arsenal have been desperate for a striker since Aubameyang, in my opinion. And Arteta has done some crazy things in that time, trying to justify 65 million on a Kai Havertz, etc. I think Arsenal still need 2 more. I think you need a left wing, proper left winger. If you get Rodrigo, and we're talking Rodrigo, Gyokerez, and Saka up front, that's arguably one of the best in the league. Like Liverpool could challenge it potentially, but outside of that, you'd be hard pressed to find a more impressive.
But do you think Arsenal will be better than Liverpool at that time?
No, because of the manager. The manager's still the issue for me. And the question marks around Odegaard.
Do you believe that Arne Slot is a better manager than Mikel Arteta? He's a better coach than Mikel
Arteta. On the evidence currently, yes. I still have some questions I need answered on Slot from next season. How does he perform in a race? Because in the pressure situations last season, I think he failed in a pressure situation against PSG. He failed in a pressure of a final against Newcastle. So I'm not saying he will fail. I'm saying I'm intrigued to see how he copes in a title race where it's head to head, where a draw is a loss, where if your kickoff is before the other team on the Sunday, you have to win. Or if it's the other way around and they've won, more pressure added. This is what I need to see out of him to confirm, like, this guy is legit. I mean, don't get me wrong, what he did last season was phenomenal, but he was able to do it at arm's length in the title race. So I'm not saying he can't do it, just to reiterate, but I'm saying it's important that he is put under pressure and we see how he copes with that pressure. But Arsenal, for me, with Arteta, he's still not that guy.
So, first of all, on the Slot thing, I think that regardless of what the gap is, there's still always a pressure in the job, right, as a manager, because you're essentially trying to motivate 22 men to do something. There's still some sort of pressure in there. I think we have to just give managers the flowers for what they achieve at the time. I don't think he has more to prove. I mean, he's always going to have something to prove every single season, because every single season you want to win something, right? So there's always going to be that pressure. But like, he's delivered on something. We have to just say he delivered on it and not have to do semantics of trying to figure out whether he's
good enough. Bro, you're misinterpreting my point. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what he did was fantastic because he did it with the squad that wasn't his. I always hear the managers crying about this isn't my team, it's my team. I'm saying I want to see how he reacts under pressure. That's not disregarding what he's done the season just gone. I'm intrigued as a football fan. I'm intrigued to see, does he get rattled? You think back to the Fergie Wenger era when Fergie would rattle Wenger. How does he, how does he cope if a manager comes after him? These little nuances that make a difference. I want to see how he copes in that. I'm not saying he fails in that, by the way. I'm just saying it will be intriguing in a proper title race. Can he come out on top?
I understand, but he made it into not a title race as well, because they did the job. They won and won and won and won, regardless of what anyone else did. So for me, he's proven himself that he can motivate a team that, regardless of what's happening to everyone else, they do their job, and that's the most important thing. When it comes to Arteta, I think the one thing I always give up, I'll always give Arteta credit for is he's built a team that's really hard to beat. Not a team that wins all the time, but a team that you go, right.
By the way, Nottingham Forest is a team that is very hard to beat.
Of course, yeah, sure. But I'm saying, if you
look did it in one preseason. He did it in one preseason.
But if you look, okay, if you look at, listen to what I'm saying. Bro,
Forest went to Anfield and won 1-0.
Mo, you're picking specific things. If you look, over this, okay, you can say the 5 years he's been here, but if you take the 3-year stretch since Arsenal became good, Arsenal's number of losses is actually just as low as Man City, or even lower than that, right? I think it's actually lower than Man City's past 3 seasons.
That the problem with you is okay. With all due respect to all the Arsenal fans and all the people that praise Arteta, I think the problem is what Olu have said, and I want people to actually listen to understand. We criticized Arsenal last season because of the will not to lose, not the will to win games. Me and Wolfie have spoken to Ashraf about this. Yeah. You need to have the will to win games instead of the will in the game not to lose. Yes, he built a formidable team, but to win the Premier League title, you need to come up with wins instead of not losses. There are plenty of teams in the world that cannot lose games. They go to the games, they're very hard to win. You need to turn the draws into wins. I'm not beating. I want to win.
Mo, you're making my point for me. I said the one thing I would give him credit for, right? That was the first part of my statement. So I was saying that that's the one thing I'll give him credit for. The next step he has to make is what you're making, right?
No, but he did it before. I'm going to interrupt you again.
I know.
He did it before. You won 16 out of 18 games, which is very hard to do. And he changed it. You were winning fantastically in the 23-24 season. I used to sit down convinced that Arsenal will win this game. Same as City, by the way. You remember this title race? It was, we know that Arsenal and City will win. You knew that it's an anomaly if Arsenal drop points here. And regardless of who the opposition is, that is what Arsenal need to. 23, I think it's 24, 20. Was it 23, 24?
2 years ago. I agree with you.
No,
2 years ago.
Even the 23, 24, it was like every game we're sitting down. We knew that Arsenal win this game. One way or the other, you'll win the game. Same as City.
I do agree, but you're still making my point for me, which is that when I say I give him credit for that, what I'm saying is that he needs to cheat, because even if we won so many games in 23-24 and the season before that, we still didn't win the league, right? And we're talking about winning the league here. We're not talking about just putting together a 89-point season and having 26 wins or 22 wins. His next step is to be able to say, in similar to what Slot did, keep motivating your team to the point where they can actually win the league. That's the next step. And until he does that, I think someone like Wolfie will not give him the credit that I think that objectively you'd say actually he's actually a really good manager for what he's doing. But until he wins the league, people will always have the reservation against him. And that's what I'm saying. But I will still be objective enough to give him credit to say that Arsenal as a team, every Sunday, I don't expect now Arsenal to lose the game. When under Emery, under the end of Wenger, I was 50-50. In most instances, actually even the other way, expecting us not to win the game. With now, us drawing feels like a loss to Arsenal now. And that's a big
fantastic
difference in
actually, let me tell you something. That is how it's supposed to be for big team. Every big team should feel this way, that a draw is a loss for you. Let me do this super chat. Rank top 5 strikers around right now. I can rank them. Number 1, Harry Kane. Haaland, Isak, Lewandowski probably, if so, and Mbappe because he plays as a striker. Have I forgotten somebody?
Gyokerez.
And someone, Is Gyokerez better than Kane? Is Gyokerez better than Isak? Is Gyokerez better than Haaland? Is Gyokerez better than Lewandowski?
Yeah,
Is he better than Mbappe?
It depends what your metric is. Are we talking on goals or what?
No, I'm asking your opinion. You can say yes. I believe he's better than these people.
Yeah, I would put him in top 5. I respect the
Ahead of who? Ahead of
I don't-
who?
I don't think it's better than Julian Alvarez.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Julian Alvarez is very good.
I don't know.
Maybe. Give me
it's
okay,
hard to
Wolfie. Just
rate.
to move on. Thank you so much, my man. Wijnaldum from the Genie Wijnaldum for the super chat. I really appreciate you. Give me your top 5 quickly so we can move on.
I can't really give a top 5, and there's different metrics and everything. But the names you put there, I'm not going to argue with. I'm just saying I'd chuck a Gyokerez in there as well.
Okay. Bermuda is a slot worked into a winning team. Arteta is better coach than Arne Slot. All right.
So why was Slot not expected to win the league last season? And Arteta was.
Because to answer this question, because people think Arteta is a better coach.
I think I'm a better coach than Arteta.
No, you're not. It's because no one knew who Arne Slot was, and we were working off ignorance that he was in the Dutch league and not actually expecting this from him. That's all it is. I think
I've won more trophies with my under-14 team than Arteta has.
I'm sure I can take you on the 14 team and win trophies as well. I'm sorry, you've not managed a bunch of men who've got personalities and egos.
Can I ask you a question, Wolfie? Is Ranieri in 2015? Oh yeah, but I get it. Yeah, you can't say that because Ranieri won the league, but he's not better than all the coaches. But he won the league, so fair enough. Mo, Isak, Flo. I don't know who Flo is.
No, Florian Wirtz.
You think Micah? You're getting Isak now. Okay, so are we doing it as Isak just joined Liverpool? Isak, Florian Wirtz, Foden, Haaland, Omar, Mo, Isak, Florian Wirtz. That is the best, and there is no argument about it. I'm not even gonna move.
Listen, Liverpool finally signed one big player. Now they think they're signing all the best players.
If Liverpool sign Isak, okay, I'm just gonna say this. Regardless of who Arsenal sign, if Liverpool sign Isak, they should absolutely hit 100 points.
No.
Mohamed Salah, Isak, Florian Wirtz, they should hit 100 points.
No, but that's not really the front 3, is it? Like, that's disingenuous because the front 3 would probably be Gakpo, Isak,
no, but if
Salah.
No, with Florian Wirtz as a 10, you should hit 100 points.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the front 3, is it? Look, should they hit 100? Could they hit 100 points? Yes, but making teams on paper isn't what plays out in reality. That's the difference. It doesn't. It's not Football Manager, man.
Yep.
City did it. Okay, there are teams that did 100 points.
I'm
not saying they can't do 100 points. I'm not saying. You're saying that it's almost like, okay, just put 100 by their name. That's the front 3.
I believe they should. With Isak, Florian Wirtz, Salah, they should get 100 points.
Look, at the end of the day, look, the bottom line is, let's be real. Why do you need to set a 100-point target? If they do that front 3 and win the league with 88 points, a Liverpool fan's going to cry.
That's fine. No.
Exactly.
But do you think anyone will win the league on 88 points next season?
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yes. I think
Arteta hate is real. He's able to build from shit. 100%. No one has argued that. But I want to ask a question. What if Arsenal don't get Rodrigo though? Why there is already number one, there is already a meltdown if Arsenal don't get Rodrigo that, oh my god, we cannot win the league, blah blah blah. Why?
Because
I mean, they're getting your boy Madueke, man. So you probably think he's better than Rodrigo, isn't it?
I don't think he's better than Madueke. Madueke at best is a backup for Bukayo Saka.
But they could be looking at him on the left-hand side if they don't get Rodrigo, because they've got you're shaking your head.
They're gonna play Eze. They're gonna play Eze on the left side.
Eze's not a wide left player. Eze's more an inside player. Like, that's not.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
But what you're saying on Madueke isn't true. According to, I think it might have even been Ornstein that said it. The reason Arsenal like Madueke is because they see him as a winger who can play on both sides. So read into that what you want.
So I'm saying no because I don't want Madueke. I think I've said this before to a few people. If this was 2 years ago, when the feel good factor was there in terms of Arsenal just first challenged, and we bring in Madueke coming in from, was it Feyenoord it was at, or PSV was at, right? I don't think anyone bats an eyelid. Everyone goes, actually, it's good to bring in a young player to help that. I think after last year, with where we're at right now, trying to win the league, Madueke is not the solution. I'm like,
Agreed.
I'm against it, to be honest, right? I don't think like he's the right person we should be going for.
What I don't understand, Olu, is that there's no Arsenal fan that is agreeing with Madueke being the winger signing for this season, but Arsenal Football Club think that is okay. Even with Kai Havertz, there's a lot of Arsenal fans that were with Kai Havertz. I've not seen one Arsenal fan that come here and tell me, yes, Madueke as our main like signing in the winger places is good. So how are Arsenal thinking that way?
That's because they have their coaching plans. They've got their tactical breakdowns that they want to do, right? So if they decide Madueke, they've obviously built together a structure they think works for him in the team. I just don't agree with it as a fan, but I don't know what's happening on the tactics board and on a training ground, right? I just will be against it. I don't think there's a world where Madueke moved the needle enough for Arsenal to win the league, right? As for Eze on the left-hand side, again, it can work, but I think there needs to be more tactical flexibility from Arsenal to do that. So less of a touchline sort of thing on the left-hand side and more bringing the player to move inwards, right? However, yeah, like I said, 2 years ago, Madueke, I'd have been like, that's a good signing. In 2025, the 8th of August, or 8th of July, 2025, Madueke we should not be anywhere near Madueke right now. I think our problems, we've got problems that we need to fix that a backup winger doesn't fix for me.
I think if we're being real about this, I would say the number one reason Arsenal fans don't want it is because they're sick of doing business with Chelsea. I think you've bought a Chelsea player every season for the last 6 years. I don't know how true that stat is, but I saw that doing the rounds. And you've already had your Chelsea quota for this transfer window with your backup keeper in Kepa. I think you guys, and I think rightly so, are sick of funding Chelsea, because by funding Chelsea, in theory, you could be paying for them to go and buy a Kudus or something like that. Whereas maybe Kudus would be more beneficial as your backup or whatever than Madueke is. Now, in terms of Madueke, this one doesn't make much sense to me, because if we're saying he's a right winger, he has more chance of playing time in a World Cup year. By the way, let's not forget he must have aspirations for World Cup by staying at Chelsea than going to be Saka's backup, who will, by default, get into that team, especially in the important games. Therefore, this doesn't make sense to me for him to be going to Arsenal as a right wing backup. Now, that's why I think potentially, if you can't get Rodrigo, is he looking at him more towards that left-hand side? Bear in mind, he did play probably 5 or 6 of the last few games on that left-hand side for Chelsea. And to be honest, he didn't look bad. I don't think Madueke is a scrub. I think he's an okay player. But in relation to the conversation about needle moving, which is like the flavor of this transfer window, does he push you closer to a title as a starter?
No,
100% no. And I think that's where the issue is with the Arsenal fans. But the logic of it from the player's point of view doesn't make sense to me to want to go and be Saka's backup, where realistically he has more chance of game time at Chelsea, even if they recruit whoever they're getting on that right-hand side.
I agree on that. I'll say this on the Chelsea thing, buying from Chelsea. The problem isn't buying from Chelsea. The problem is who we're buying from Chelsea. And I say it this way, right? When Man City were buying all of Arsenal's best players, they didn't say, oh, why are we going to Arsenal to buy the players? They were like, yes, let's go get more of the best players. The problem is that for the past couple of seasons, we seem to buy players from them where at the end of the career,
you're not buying their best player. You're not buying the Caicedos and the Palmers.
Exactly. You're not exactly. If we went there and said, no, we're taking Caicedo, we're taking Palmer, we're taking
different story.
I think that's a different story. So it's not. I think the Chelsea thing is more the type of players. To be fair, Jorginho was a good buy for me. Like I think he did a decent job, and he like there was a maturity that he brought to the team. But the likes of David Luiz, Peter Checkaway was absolutely done.
So
Obviously, Havertz.
can I ask? Wolfie
contributes
brought
up
up a point that is to be honest, that is very strange to me. But I want to. So do you think that if Arsenal were buying an Elanga or a Hudson-Odoi, would that be okay for Arsenal, Wolfie? Because you mentioned that Arsenal are sick of doing business with Chelsea, the fans. Do you think they would have taken it in a better manner?
No way.
No, but with one of those, you could argue a clearer case of backup to Saka. There's a clearer differential to that coming from, say, Forest to that. Who's
But
the
it
other one?
is clear that Arsenal, like Elanga or Hudson-Odoi or Semenyo, for example.
I think Hudson-Odoi will be a no, because I think that most the sort of perception. Yeah, but I think the perception as well is that he's sort of like he's past his best because of the injuries. And again, I don't know because I don't watch Forest as
right. He's only 23.
Yeah, but I think it was the ACL he had for Chelsea.
Yeah,
I think,
a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably still think that the ACL has robbed him of the quality of player that he could become. Elanga, I don't think Arsenal fans would be happy with Elanga, because I think we still have
Rodrigo or no?
I don't even like Rodrigo. You know this already. I think he's vastly overrated, but that's just me.
But the bottom line is there is a severe lacking in quality on the wingers. I mean, you got Rodrigo, Leao maybe. Nico Williams has tied himself up now. There isn't that big a pool. That's why when I get asked about Gittins, what's my thought on Gittins? I think that signing's fine for Chelsea because of the pool that is available in that position. Will he be successful or not? Time will tell. But there isn't much talent out there. And this is where I think Arsenal are struggling because you got Rodrigo up here and then maybe Leao just beneath and then a big gap to everything else. So if you're not getting those two, like the pool down here is much of the same.
Yeah, but then this is why I go back to the same thing I said for United. Go and scout. Like, you pay these people loads of money. We can't just be talking about 5 wingers when there's 900,000 professional football players in the world. There's gonna be someone good out there that no one knows about.
Yeah, but bro, you can't do that. You can't do that because I'll tell you why. Because you are looking at a starter in a title race. Now, for me, a good signing for Arsenal would be someone like Fofana from Lyon. Excellent player, very good potential, very good quality. But could Arsenal go and sign Fofana on the left-hand side in a title race with that risk? That's the difference here. So where you are now as a club, where Arteta's messed up for 5 years, not bringing anything home, you almost have to buy some renowned names, which could be at a detriment because you are going to miss out on some of these talents that are coming through. That's the difference. United can go and scout players because they're in a rebuild after finishing 15th last season. But where you finish second, you can't take that kind of risk. You have to go out and win a major for me next season.
All right, listen, I understand. I still think that we start talking about players after they've made it, but to get to that point, they have to be scouted. So ultimately, go and find some of these young gems and bring them in, right? That's kind of what I'm saying. But I do agree, of course, at the same time, you can't just bank on bringing a new player into a new.
What about Anthony Gordon?
I don't know.
Is he better than Martinelli?
He's just Martinelli with blonde hair, to be honest.
So maybe Arsenal should change the way they. Maybe you should sign Cisco and Gyokerez and just play with 2 striker formation.
I don't know. I don't know. Listen, you know what? Listen, pay me £15 million a year that Arteta is earning, and I'll come up with a solution for you. Until then,
why not get? I don't know how much budget Arsenal have, but get Gyokerez up front. Bring Ekitike in, who I think can play out on the left, and fade in.
Yeah.
And then he's also then back up for Gyokerez. If there's an injury or whatever, you can shove him up front. Like, that's kind of the thing I would do, depending obviously on budget and everything. And then Eze is another. I don't think Eze is a wide left player. You'd have to.
I don't think he is a wide left player.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, so but it gives you options. It gives you options.
By the way, people don't like me when I said I think Rodrigo's overrated. I love that. Can I explain very quickly? Very quick.
I like Leao more. Go ahead.
Let me just explain very quick why I don't rate Rodrigo. Okay, so everyone says Rodrigo plays for Real Madrid, but he's playing in the wrong position, right? He should be playing on left wing. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went and did research and looked at how many times he's played for Real Madrid on the left wing. It's not that many times. In fact, most of the games he played was at Santos or wherever it is in Brazil. Now, unless people were up at 3 a.m. watching him play in the Brazilian league when no one really knew he was, I think a lot of people believe that he's good on the left wing, but haven't seen it. I don't think Vinny Jr. is that great. And if he's not displacing Vinny Jr., and he's meant to be this amazing player on the left wing, either for Brazil or for Real Madrid, I think that people assume he's going to be this player on the left wing, and it's not going to show. The thing about him as well is that even on the right-hand side, where he played for Real Madrid last season, and I remember when Ahmed said he's been the best player for Real Madrid, and I said, let's look at his stats. Saka was injured.
That was rubbish. That was a rubbish thing.
Saka came back from injury. Saka has still had the same number of goals and assists as the guy had over the season, and he had been playing consistently. And then he said, "Oh, he's been the best player." And I was like, "How many games do you watch him play?" He said, "Oh, maybe 8." I think a lot of people believe what Rodrigo is, but when I watch him play, I'm like, he's a good player, but he's not this. Like, he's not Ronaldinho. He's not Ronaldo. He's not R9. He's not even Danielson who played for Betis. He's a good player, but I think we overhype him.
No, I hear your argument, and I agree to certain points of it, but I wouldn't bring him down to the level you're bringing him down to. If you want to say he's untested at a whole season on the left side, then yes, I would agree to that. And I hear what you're saying about Vinny Jr. I don't think he's been fantastic this season, but he would work just by watching him. There's a few benefits. He's right-footed. If you're on the left side, you can cut in. You get more chance of scoring goals, but is that to the detriment of your assists? I don't think he's ever had a double digits season or something like that. I saw a stat with him. People will say, oh, but he played 10 games for Real Madrid on the left side, 5 goals, 5 assists. All right, cool. But that's not over a long sustained period.
Exactly.
That's the thing. So I get your point about untested, but he has the raw talent and the raw ability to be that good on the left-hand side would be my point on it. Does that translate from La Liga, where he's probably, with all due respect to that league, not going to be as challenged as he will be gaming week in, week out in the Premier League? That's another question mark on it, but I wouldn't bring him down to what you're saying. But he would need to come in, and because it'll cost what, about 70-80 million, I think is the price tag on him.
80 million pounds.
Also, I'll add to this. I don't watch Real Madrid enough to be able to
check. Over the last 2 seasons, he has played about 12 games on the left wing.
Right. Yeah. As a sample size, if you're doing any data analysis, they'll go, that's not enough to be able to make a conclusion of how good he'll be on the left wing, right? I think people just project what they think.
He's going to be phenomenal. I know that if he comes to Arsenal, he's going to be fantastic.
I'll put it this way. I think, and again, I'm happy to be wrong, I think he's going to end up being like, remember Pedro when he came from the Barcelona team, and everyone was like, how great Pedro was.
Can I tell you, with all due respect, Pedro's career at Barcelona is much better than Rodrigo's career. Pedro used to start every single game, score abundance of goals. Pedro at Barcelona was better than Rodrigo at Real Madrid. Like, Pedro was a great player for Barcelona.
At Chelsea, he just became another winger. He wasn't.
He was good, but he wasn't like he wasn't like the Ronaldinho of Chelsea. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I get what you're saying.
Something as well to add. Now, this is a minor point, sorry, but it's still worth noting. If Arsenal go and sign one of Real's starting front 3, that's a statement in itself, whether or not you think he's a baller or not. But the actual statement, where everyone's used to Real Madrid coming out to nitpick who they want, whether or not Rodrigo is going to be a starter under Alonso and what have you, it's still pulling a name out from Real Madrid, a big name, over to Arsenal. I think that has some merit as well in it. Yes, it doesn't impact what he's going to do or not on the pitch, but it shows intent as well. You know what I mean? It says Arsenal is serious.
We've done that, you know. We took Dani Ceballos, we took Julio Baptista.
That's khalas. Let me do the. Anthony Gordon is arguably the best left winger in the league. Is he? Is he? Anthony Gordon, the best left winger in the league. I don't know. I need to think.
The bars in hell.
I'm not sure.
Winger.
Yeah. Brian, is it, in the last 3 seasons, Diaz and Martinelli have been putting up the same numbers, yet everyone calls Martinelli crap. It is a weird as hell.
I'm sorry.
Right. Someone rates Martinelli.
No.
Someone rates Martinelli.
Martinelli runs the ball off the pitch. I'm sorry. Let's be objective here. The numbers are one thing, but when you watch Martinelli do those brain dead runs, you see why, like, he's a pain in the ass most of the times.
Yeah, it's not always about GA. I mean, he was born offside, man. Like, some of those offside situations are unforgivable that he gets himself into.
The problem is, I don't think Martinelli is ever going to take that next step in his career to be like Saka or to be like a. Like, I don't think that Martinelli is going to develop to be a winger that everyone is looking at and be like, oh my God, you're so dangerous.
I think he can, but he needs to leave. I think he needs to drop down.
I don't think he has the football ability, to be honest.
No, guys, it's a simple. He's a simple solution, and Henry said it. He needs to look up. He's always looking on the floor. Just look up for a second. He'll be so much better if his eyes wasn't just looking at the ground all the time. Watch him square up to a player.
Yeah. But that's football IQ, and I mean, you've either born with that football IQ or you're not. It's very hard to learn it. So, yeah, I hear that.
The thing about it is that for Arsenal to win the league next season, they have to have a spark that is different. I know you have to go, Wolfie. You have to have a spark that is different. That spark will come from the Gyokerez's, Eze's, Rodrigo's signing. It won't come from the Madueke's signing, for example. They won't.
Yeah.
Like, the players are gonna look around in the dressing room and they see Madueke and they're like, "Yeah, we might not win the league again," you know. They're gonna look it's like, well, but they look around and they see Gyokerez, Rodrigo, blah. They're like, "Oh yeah, we got a spark right here. We can win this league."
Wasn't Martinelli was he a striker originally? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I know you gotta go, Wolfie. So I'll let you go.
Jump.
Yeah, big up. We'll stay for a bit.
See you guys.
See you,
make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and salam. I'll see you later.
See you, Habib. See you. Yeah, Arsenal and Liverpool. So, to be honest with you, why is everyone, guys? We still have over 1,000 people here, and we're not on 500 likes. At least half the percentage. I'm sure there is 800 of you that haven't even liked the video yet. Guys, the like in the video, push it to the next viewer. So hit that like button. Come on now. Why is everyone disregarding City though? Lately, it has been going around.
Because they lost the game to a team they shouldn't have lost.
Hilal. People are so reactionary about it.
Yep. You remember, like, when they signed Reinders to sign Cherky, they won a couple of years in the World Cup. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, Man City is so back, and going to be so much better." And the conversation was Arsenal were not going to be. It was going to be a City pool thing again, and they lose one game, and all of a sudden, like, they realize the fundamental issues with Man City last season, i.e., the defense, hasn't been fixed. I think, for me, listen, Man City with Pep, you can never disregard him. He's the evil genius that you should never sort of back against. But I think there's still an issue in the sense that Diaz is not as good as he once was, right? And I would even argue that Laporte was always a better defender than him, naturally. But that's for another day. Obviously, they've still got issue on the right hand side in terms of the right back. Walker, with his pace, solved so many problems that they had. Right, I think he was so much of a cover, and now that you've taken that out, you're starting to see a little bit more exposure in terms of them. And I still think even with listen, we don't know what Rodri's going to be like. We don't know if he's going to hit the same heights he did. So there's obviously there's that question that needs to be answered in terms of him. And Reinders and Cherky, are they going to be enough to be solid in the Premier League? So I can see why people, especially based off that last game, have the reservations about them. Because, I don't think they've fundamentally solved their problems. And it just took one game to sort of prove that again. But look, it's Pep.
It's all about Pep Guardiola, to be honest.
All about Pep.
Pep. Everyone is scared of Pep. Everyone is scared of Pep Guardiola. To be honest. We'll see how it goes.
If any other manager, had that Man City team, I would go, no chance.
Yeah.
Zero chance. But once you know Pep and the fact that he probably is wide awake right now, also, well, maybe not now because it's obviously afternoon, but he doesn't go to sleep. He's constantly thinking of tactics and football and so on and so forth. You know he's going to think of a solution or potential solution. So they will still be dangerous. I just don't think that they're going to be better than Liverpool and Arsenal this season until they solve their problems in defense.
We'll see how it goes. Hit that like button, people, before you go. I'm just going to leave you guys here. Hit that like button. Don't go anywhere. This is going to take you to Hussam's stream where he's doing the thing with Kopish and Tom Little. That's going to be a fair Liverpool show, of course. We're back tonight at 6:30 UK time. Myself, Hussam, Ashraf, and...
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask
yeah.
a question before you go? How are you feeling? And this is a non-Premier League related question, but I want to get your thoughts because we haven't spoken in a while. How are you feeling about Inter going to next season with everything that's happened?
Top 4 battle.
You think it's that serious a situation?
Yes. Inzaghi destroyed the club, and I mean it. Our players are now being sold on a lower value than what happened, what they should have. Nobody wants to come to Inter. There is a lot of talk around that our players are unhappy in the dressing room. I'm just going to have to tell you, imagine if these players lost to PSG with dignity. Just a 2-1 or a 2-0. People would come in to ask for Inter players. As we lost to Man City 1-0, right? But when we sold Onana, we sold them for big money. You know what I mean? When we let players go, we let them go for big money. The problem with what happened with the 5-0 that Inzaghi is the main culprit in is that it made people look at the Inter players way lower than what they actually are. It made the team look so bad. You know what I mean? And that is the problem that happened at Inter. Losing the league as well, bottling the league, made people think that this Inter team is bad. You know what I mean? And that is the problem. That is the main problem. You're muted.
Sorry, I was going to say, is the Inter team pretty old in terms of...
Actually, not really. Like, there's Barella, Dumfries, Lautaro Martinez, Thuram, Di Marco, Carlos Augusto, Bastoni. These players are in their prime. Like, I mean, mid-20s to like 27, 26. This is a prime age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is crazy how one loss changes the perspective of how you look at the team completely. You know what I mean?
And also the manager. Do you remember? Like,
I don't want to go there.
I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to say that. I just remember, especially Chelsea fans.
He's a great coach. He's a phenomenal coach. As a coach, he is fantastic. The problem with him is his mentality when pressure is on. But as a coach, he's phenomenal and great. He's absolutely great, bro. Like and also, I believe that he wasn't focused. I believe that he wasn't focused on winning. And I actually believe that losing, and I'm just gonna put it this way this time, losing the league and losing the final 5-0 served his cause in going to El Hilal without any backlash or any criticism from the media or even someone like you. You're sitting here accepting that Inzaghi on top of his game. Imagine if Arteta tomorrow leaves Arsenal and go to Al Nassr. What would you say?
What
a waste.
What a waste.
Right? What a waste. Imagine if Arne Slot won the league with Liverpool. Next season he goes to Saudi League. What would you say?
What a waste.
Too young. Waste for the money. Too young. You're on top of your game. Right?
Yeah.
But imagine if Arne Slot loses 5-0, bottles the league, does this, does that, after he has the best team. Like, imagine if Liverpool, I'm just going to give an example, and just people understand before I end the show. Imagine if Liverpool sign Isak, so they are the best team in the Premier League, The league is handed to them and they bottle it.
Hmm.
And they go to the final of the Champions League and lose 4-0 or 5-0.
Hmm.
Arne Slot leaves and goes to Saudi. What would you say?
I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I'd be like, he probably needs to get away from the spotlight.
I need people to think about that before they make judgments about Inzaghi and the Inter team. Because it's exact. Inzaghi won the league with Inter last season, bottled it this season, lost the Champions League final, lost against Milan in a very strange circumstances when he was leading in the Super Cup, right? Lost the league after being handed the league. In the cup, he was knocked out by Milan. After, by the way, playing in the second gear. And now we are accepting that Inzaghi coaches in the Saudi league, and he's okay.
Yeah, the only thing I feel sad is that it wasn't Arsenal that sent him to the Saudi league, but that's for another conversation.
You wouldn't.
Right.
You wouldn't. Anyway, I'm gonna see you guys. This will take you to Osam. We are out of here, people.
Peace,
And
everyone.
Inter paid their debt to UEFA. Inter paid their debt and they settled with UEFA. I'm just putting this out there, guys. 3 weeks after the final. We'll see you guys. We're out of here, people.
Peace.